So since we're recording, that means we're also live. I can pick up all of your conversations, even if you think I can't hear me. So keep that in mind. Everything is kept on the permanent record, especially the Unit 6 introduction here. So if we find our way to our thread for the week, here we are, P2 web design for this final week before break. Okay, cool. I did update the dates. We're going to talk a little bit about Unit 6, which is the split of the advanced CSS unit to give us extra practice on the new root folder submission method. Talking specifically about media queries, if you know anything about that or you want to do some more research, that's the name of the concept we're going to be explaining. And there's lots of videos and resources attached this week. Don't forget to submit your Unit 5 roots. Those are available until January 4th, 2024. And also, don't forget that this week is Spirit Week. So hold on, let me pull my thing up real quick. There we go. I totally forgot. So I'll let you guys we'll get in the know, get ahead of the rest of this week. We'll present this. All right, so today was ski out day. Bring your big winter jacket, your big ski gear. I totally forgot. So tomorrow, come prepared for ugly sweater day. I definitely have some of those. Then candy cane day. So it says underclassmen 9-10, you guys wear red, and then 11-12, you guys wear white. So we have a nice candy cane mix up happening here. Holiday chaos day, just come in as many holiday accessories as possible. You think like your stocking hats, your ski jackets, your ski boots. You could probably come in skis if you wanted to go extra chaos. And then Friday, the one that I'm definitely going to be taking advantage of, is going to be PJ Day. So here's our Winter Spirits Week, if you're interested in the days. Yes, Chris. 9 and 10 is under, 11, 12 is upper. All right, so there's that. Tomorrow's Ugly Sweater Day. I'm hoping to see some heat in the ugly sweater category. But anyway, let's talk about Advanced CSS Part 2. So, if you go to the modules, you can see that Unit 6 Advanced CSS Part 2 is available here. It's got exactly the same submit your route at the top, as well as some, I changed the name on that, so have to fix that later. The PowerPoint is available that I'm about to show you, as well as the assignment we're going to talk about in just a second. But before we do any of that, there is a video that I want to show you real quick that breaks down the main idea of the thing that we're looking for with a much better example before we get into the actual setup portion, because this one has a little bit more setup than previous units, and you'll see why here in just a second. So I'm going to play this. I'm not going to record it, but I am going to play it. Yeah. Okay, sweet. So media queries are that the quickest way to make your pages more responsive to a variety of different screens, which means a more responsive site to a variety of different users, which 6.1 is going to be the first time that we really start practicing that. So we have a little bit of setup to do for this first exercise. The second exercise we'll get into later this week. And before we do any of that, there's a short PowerPoint that's available for y'all talking about responsive layouts in general. We've talked all semester. You've heard me mention, hey, you want your web page to respond. You don't want it to be so stuck in the way that you've initially written it, but you want it to be able to be viewed on a variety of screens, because we want all our sites to look good on any screen, right? We have all these different screen options. Your users are going to have a ton of different screen options. And to have a different design based on the device or screen size is called having a responsive layout. So whenever I'm talking about make your page responsive, or make sure you're thinking about how your page will respond, that's going to be different design choices based on the size of your screen, based on the available real estate that you have to work with. And thankfully, we can do that pretty easily with HTML and CSS by taking advantage of media queries. So there's a couple different versions. You can add a media attribute depending on the type of media that your device is sending when it makes a request of the server. Like for this style sheet, for example, this is just called style.css, but it will only apply this link when the media is set to screen. Just an extra little bit of specifics that you can add into the HTML portion, the attribute portion of our Zelda link here, so that when the media is set to screen, then this certain style sheet will apply. The reason that we started with pseudo classes before we got into media queries is because it continues to build on that conditional idea of when certain things are met, if certain things are met, then certain CSS will apply, certain JavaScript will happen, certain breakpoints will be hit, whatever. Conditions need to be met before something changes. And the media attribute defines what devices should use what style sheets, multiple. We're gonna have multiple. And there are a bunch of different media types. We're gonna ignore handheld, TV projection, right? We're just gonna stick to screen, all, and print are gonna be the main three that we're gonna be working with here. So the problem that gets introduced though is that a lot of mobile devices ignore the handheld property. So my understanding, the handheld property is something from the early days of mobile computers. Early like PDAs, early cell phones, tablet PCs from the 2000s. They were the ones that had that handheld property way back in the day. Because Safari, Google, Mozilla, or Firefox, all those browsers on your phone want to use the full web. They don't want to use the handheld version. You can work around this by specifying screen size. There's going to be a majority of the thing called a breakpoint, where your stuff is going to move and adjust depending on a screen size, where it's going to break and behave in a different way. And we're mostly going to be using min width, min height, and max height to take advantage of that here. And those are going to go after an and, because we're including them on our condition here. So if the media type is set to screen and the minimum width of the viewport is 800 pixels, all of that if it's true, then the CSS for this style sheet will apply. So you can see this one's set to screen style, this one's set to phone style, so that there's a difference between the phone user experience, the UX, and the screen user experience. So that's just a little piece of stuff to keep in mind for 6.1, which we'll talk a little bit about right now. So this is the part where if you've been tuning me out, you want to tune it back in because I'm going to be doing some code along stuff, some setups. We need to build our Unit 6 root for this last week of this year. So if we go into our file explorer and then find our way to, not admin, excuse me, first semester, second period web design, you can go up to view, the third tab on your browser or your screen here, and check this group by box to type. It's going to collect all of your different file types inside of your explorer here. And it separates your zips from your files, so it's a lot easier to see what you have already zipped, what you have likely already submitted. And you can also collapse them like this so that it's a little bit easier to get around your file explorer. So I'm going to go back to the home tab and click on new folder. Name it like we normally do for Canvas, Unit 6, and it should line up right next to Unit 5. Just keep things nice and organized. So since just for our single 6.1 HTML page, we need at least 3 style sheets, we are most definitely going to have a styles subfolder. So that's Unit 5. I'm going to go into Unit 6 here, new folder, 1 subfolder for styles, and 1 subfolder for SRC, just in case we have anything, any images that we need to work with later on. It's always good to have a little landing zone for them to live, for them to have a place to hang out. So this is normal root folder setup. This is the stuff we've been doing all year, so I'm not going to stick to it super hard. We're going to go into VS Code and then File, Open Folder. We're just going to open up that new root folder we just created. So if we go to second period web design, they're no longer grouped, but it's only looking for files this time. And it's right under, or folders this time, excuse me. And it's right underneath Unit 5. So if we go into there, the first thing that we need to do is we need to create our index page. Before we do anything, we need to make our table of contents so that we can get around the root once it finally gets submitted. So I'm going to click on new file right here and call this one Unit 6 index.html. I think I spelled it right. That says unt6. So we're going to fix that real quick. Unit 6 index.html. Make sure you have those file extensions. And then change the document title to be Blakeney second period Unit 6. And then I'm also going to add in the body on line number 10 here. I'm going to type H1 and then hit enter to get my start and end tags automatically. Say this is the homepage for Unit 6. Remember, you guys can decorate this index page however you like. The only thing that's required are the anchors to the actual other pages, the other HTML files that we're going to be creating, that we're going to be experimenting with for this unit. So what you can do, I'm going to type A and then hit enter so I get my high ref action happening here. If you want to leave a placeholder for a high ref, like for a link that you're going to add later or a page you want to develop later, an image, SRC, whatever, any type of placeholder, you can put a hashtag inside of the quotes, and so that you can fully configure your anchor so that it's easier to copy and paste or easier to edit once you get later on, or if you wanted to leave some kind of placeholder or something, you can add a hashtag inside of the quotes like that, so you know that you need to change it later on. I'm also going to add a target equals blank on my anchor because I just like having mine open in new tabs so that I can keep track of everything in one spot. You don't have to do that. I just like doing it because I think it looks good. The last thing you need on this anchor high ref is some content. We need some actual thing to click on. I'm just going to add some 6.1 in there so that you have something to work with. I'm also going to go under my anchor and add a horizontal line so that I have room for my decorations starting on line 13 in this case. But if you don't want to do that, you don't have to. These are the only things that you need are the actual anchors to the assignments, which we're going to create right now. So you should just have your Unit 6 index, no styles, no SRC inside of this root. Let's make our index page, or sorry, not our index page, our HTML page for 6.1. So that is Canvas naming scheme, the Blakeney P2 6.1.html. You cannot forget those file extensions now that we're working with a little bit of a different sort of setup here. And then we're going to start this HTML file like normal. Type in HTML, clicking on the 5, changing the document title to be the assignment name, P2 6.1. And then I'm going to add a little bit of a version history number. So I'm going to type V1, highlight that, and then control question mark. Control question mark is that quick comment shortcut so that you have just a little marker indicating which version number this page is. So I'm going to type in H1 so that I know this is 6.1, like that. And now we need to make our style sheets. So this is normal HTML setup. We've been doing this. Let's talk about the actual part that's a little different this time. So exercise 1 has us using media queries to write a single web page that has extra large blue white text on a background when this certain breakpoint is met. Normal size text on a red text on a yellow background when this breakpoint happens, and black and white text on a white, or black text on a white background when a page is printed. So that's a lot of information, a lot of stuff we're thinking about here. But we need some structure before we do any of that. And before we do, yeah, sorry, I got ahead of myself. We need some structure. So I'm going to go to my 6.1, take off this placeholder that I just put, because I'm going to create 3 divs so that I know once I link my multiple style sheets together that all of them are functioning correctly. This is kind of like a, like if you can drive, you turn on your car and it makes sure all the lights are working good, right? It's just a check of all your indicators. This is to make sure that all of our CSS is linked correctly. So I'm going to start with a div.blue. And as long as you can see that wrench icon, you can hit enter. And that will auto add the start and end tags with the class or whatever attributes you want to put there. That's my blue div. I'm going to repeat that process 2 more times. Oops, there we go. Sorry. Blue div. Okay. And then I'm going to go div.yellow because I know that's my specific yellow background, red text, not blue, just kidding. Yellow div. And then finally, we need a black and white div for when the page is printed, when the certain condition is met. I'm just going to go div.bw, hit enter, and then this is my black and white div. So div with the class of blue, div with the class of yellow, div with the class of black and white. Now I need to make my style sheet so that I can make sure that those 3 pieces are connected. So I'm going to click on my style subfolder, make sure you have the solid rectangle. I'm going to create a new file, 6.1 underscore blue style.css. This is the style sheet that's going to have my blue media query. I'm going to repeat that process 2 more times for each of the queries that we're going to be writing for this first exercise. I'm going to go 6.1 underscore yellow style.css. And then third and finally, click on my style subfolder, new file, 6.1 underscore BW style.css. So because it's going to go alphabetically, blue style as or BW is going to be right underneath blue style, so it confuses it a little bit from the canvas order. So just make sure you're writing on the correct style sheet when you get into the speed of web designing. So on our 3 style sheets here, I'm only going to write one rule as it relates to each of these div classes. So for on 6.1 blue style, I'm going to go div.blue, blue. And then I'm just going to set the font size to be 200%. I'm not going to do the whole CSS because that is your guys' job. Set that font size to 200% on blue style. Then I'm going to go over to yellow style.css. This is where I'm going to put my div.yellow. Curly bracket. Hit enter. And then I'm going to set this background color to be yellow. And then repeat that process one more time on the black and white style, BW style. Since this is specific to printing the page, I don't want to write the whole query yet. So I'm just going to go div dot, I forgot how I wrote it, lowercase bw. So div dot bw, curly bracket. I'm just going to give this a border so that you can see where it's at. I'm going to 1px solid black. So now, if I go back to my HTML page, and go in between the meta and the title, I can type LINK and then hit enter to get my rel style sheet and my href. Start with my subfolder. And then there's 3 separate CSS files with 3 separate CSS rules. If I attach my blue style.css and set the type equals to text/CSS. If I go to my output by going live, you can see that blue div is 200%, but the other CSS rules are not able to be found because we haven't linked that style sheet yet. You can link multiple style sheets to a single HTML page. So I'm going to repeat the process that I did for blue style 2 more times, LINK, enter. Subfolder first for styles in the href, and then we're going to go yellow style. I've already typed out this text equals CSS, so I'm going to Control C that, Control V onto the next attribute, and repeat it with my third link for my third style sheet, style subfolder, BW style, space, Control V to get my text equals CSS. Now I have 3 separate links from blue, yellow to black and white in order. And now if I were to go back to my output, you will see that the rules I wrote in each of those separate style sheets are applying to a single HTML page like this. If I zoom in, you can see the CSS happening here because we've linked each of these 3 individual style sheets to one HTML document. So I'll let you guys check yours against mine real quick. I'm going to open up my Explorer so you can see some of the files that I'm working with here. And then I just have some basic CSS on each of the sub style sheets because we'll be doing specific stuff with media queries. As long as your CSS selectors match your HTML classes, then your indicator, your dashboard lights should come on like this. And that's the majority of the setup that we'll need to do for the media queries and stuff. We won't get into every step of the way today, but this week we'll be focused on finishing up these media queries here in just a second. As long as yours is looking pretty similar to mine. Oh, I forgot a step. We have to link, we have to link our 6.1 to our table of contents and replace the hashtag with the actual file name there so that we can navigate to it later on. So I'm going to type my first 2 letters on my file, click on that, Control S. I'm going to dump my server so I can make sure my index page is running. I'm going to go click on the play button and then run and debug with Chrome. Here we are on my homepage for Unit 6. When I click on 6.1, it should take me to P2 6.1 with all of my specific CSS applied here. So I know that my table of contents works. That's your first checkbox. And I know that my multiple style sheets work. That's your second checkbox. So your index page should be looking something like mine. Just normal H1, normal href, target equals blank, all this fun stuff. And then 3 separate style sheets that just have a little bit of CSS, all connected back to 6.1 here. If you've done all those steps, you're ready to go for your block day. And we'll talk about how to actually get into these media queries. So if you're interested in some more information about how these media queries work, we find our way to our weekly thread. There are 2 examples here that I'm going to go into more detail later this week. But you can see if you go into the try it yourself, you can adjust and see these media queries at play. So like, for example, this one right here with a CSS comment that says for screens that are 992 pixels wide or less, the background color is blue. So you can see my result size right up here is 608 pixels. It's still less than 992. If I were to increase that up towards 992, right at 993, since it's 1 pixel above the maximum allowed width, the CSS inside of here will apply. So we get bigger than that and see what happens. We got to go 993. We're getting there. Oh, there we go. So now that we've hit a number larger than 992, you can see on screens that are 600 pixels wide or less. Okay, so sorry, I got confused. These queries are only going to happen when the screen is 992 pixels wide or less. So if we go down to less than 992, this one is only going to be applied when the screen size is less than 600 pixels. So if we go down below 600, it turns olive, and any other time it's set to a background color of tan, so that if we go larger than the required conditions here, it's going to just apply any normal CSS that you have written on your page. That'll make more sense as we do more examples. And then here's another example. When you resize the window, when a certain condition is met, when a certain condition is met, the CSS inside the container will be applied like this. That's media queries. It's going to help you change the way that your page looks, change the way that your elements interact with one another. It's going to change, you can change color, you can change function, you can change all types of cool stuff. And then exercise 2 we'll get into later this week, but you're changing the display arrangements so that your div squares, your red, green, and blue div squares, display in a column instead of a row. Does all that make sense? It's a lot of introductory stuff today. It's not a lot of experimentational stuff. But as we get through the week, you will see more and more how these things work together, and I will be helping you code them along as the steps progress. But if you wanted one last check against my HTML and my root folder here, as well as my actual code text, that's available for you. And then my style sheets just have some basic CSS. Does anybody have any questions in general before we get into all of this? All right, good deal. So as long as your guys' Unit 6 root folder is set up and you've done a little bit of the coding along with me so that you have an index page, an HTML page for 6.1, and a couple style sheets all linked together, you're in a good spot. That's what I'm looking for at the end of today. All right, if there's no questions, I'm going to wrap up the Zoom room, and then I'll help you guys with the remainder of our day here. You don't have anything to turn in. You can get started on 6.1 if you want to try it yourself, but that is not required. And yeah, I just want to make sure your roots are good. So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it.